Hey, welcome to the Relentless Positivity Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Martin. Got a very unique guest with me today. You probably don't know much about this, and I didn't either. So we got the #1 Firewalk instructor in the world with us today. His name's Dave Albin. He used to work with Tony Robbins, and he started his own company, Firewalk Productions, in 2014. Back in the day, him and Tony Robbins set a world record in London in 2005. Firewalk 12,300 people at one time. So Dave, thanks for being on the show, man.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks, Joe. That was a mouthful. It's great to be here, man. It's always an honor to come on a show, man.
Well, I appreciate you being here. Well, let's kick it off, man. So, kind of share how did you become the #1 Firewalk instructor?
Well, the joke that Bugs Bunny would make is, I made that left-hand turn at Albuquerque. It's a great question, Joe. It's like I think back, it's like how did that all happen? There were so many things that had to happen along the way for me to get to that position. It was certainly nothing that I was looking for or wanted to be. It really came, obviously from my first Firewalk. I went to my first Tony Robbins event in 1995. And I had a buddy called me on the phone. He said, "Hey, Tony's coming to town. You want to go?" I said, "Sure." He goes, "Great. I'll make the arrangements." Well, heck, he calls me back like an hour later and he goes, "Done." And I said, "Okay, great." And he said, "So they told us to do some stuff. #1, hydrate, drink a lot of water." Okay, makes sense. What else? Bring snacks. Okay, why? Well, we're going to spend a lot of time in the room. Now I'm laughing. Anybody's ever been to a Tony Robbins seminars knows why I'm laughing. It's unbelievable how much time that man will stay on stage. And so got it. All right, got snacks. What else? Bring a good attitude and be ready to play full out. I said, "Okay, well, how much was the ticket?" Now, this is in 95, Joe. It was $695. Like, what's that worth today? Like 1.2, 1.3. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. You know what? Buy Bitcoin. That's all I know. So, and just as he's getting ready to get off the phone, he goes, "Oh, by the way, we're going to be doing a Firewalk." And my brain went, like hell we are. Right? I mean, I'm not saying anything to my buddy Dan, but I'm like, and you know what's interesting, Joe? I don't know what that means. What's a Firewalk? I don't know. It's like nobody that's ever heard of it before, and they hear the Firewalk, they're going to say, "What's that?" But my brain still said no, because almost every decision up until that point, that area of my life, was based on fear. And it wasn't face everything and rise. It was forget everything and run, right? And so, but I don't want my buddy to know, I'm just like, "Yeah, sure, Dan, sounds interesting. No problem. All right, cool. See you then." Well, the big day comes. And we get there. There's 3,500 people at this event. And we're in Reston, Virginia. And Tony took the stage at 2:00 in the afternoon. Well, the next thing we know, it's after midnight.
Wow.
We've been in a room for 10 hours with Robbins. And I get asked all the time, it's like, "Well, don't you get tired?" And I like, look, when he's on stage and he's going at the rate and he's delivering the kind of content that he does, you don't want to leave the room. You don't even want to go to the bathroom, man. Yes. That's how intense it is. So there it is. It's after midnight, and all of a sudden Tony goes, "Take your shoes off." And I'm like, "Oh no, no, pal. I see where you're going with that. You're not tricking me into that shit. That ain't happening." Well, I got a problem. My buddy, guess what he's doing? He's down there undoing his shoes. 3,500 people, they're taking their shoes off. And I'm like, so what am I going to do? Because I'm not doing this Firewalk. I've already made a decision, flat out. Nope, ain't doing. That's insane. I'm not doing it. But I got a problem. What am I going to do? Not take my shoes off and walk out into this big parking lot with 3,500 people that are, pointing at me? "Hey, there, look at that guy. He didn't take his shoes off." So I'm like, calm down. Here's the plan. When we go out there, lose your buddy and go hide in the back. You'll be fine. No one's going to know. But so just take your shoes off. That way you don't have to deal with the embarrassment of not taking your shoes off. Well, it gets worse. when Tony's got you going out there, he gets everybody to start clapping and chanting. Now you got 3,500 people going, "Yes, yes, yes." It gets worse. When you go out into this giant parking lot where they're doing the Firewalk, he's got African drummers, right? So it's dun, 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 dun. I mean, it's a dog and pony show unlike anything you've ever seen. So how do you logistically Firewalk 3,500 people? Well, the first thing you do in the middle of the day, you build a big giant pit, 35 feet wide, probably 70 feet long. and you stack it with cord after cord of wood, of hardwood, seasoned, and it burns all day. And then at the end of the night, it renders. So there's this big giant pile of blue coals. It's a gorgeous fire. And so what they do is, logistically, they go over there with wheelbarrows. They load the coals into wheelbarrows, then they take a wheelbarrow and they put it in between 2 lanes of sod, of grass. They call it a fire lanes, 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. And then they just take a flathead shovel, man, and they sprinkle those coals onto that grass. They pound it down, and that's what you walk on. Well, again, I'm having none of it. My plan is ditch your buddy, which I did. I'm standing in the back. I think I got it all figured out. Nah, no, I don't. Why did Tony Robbins bring firewalking into his events? It's real simple. It's probably the most life-changing experience any human will ever go through. It's been around for 1,000 years. Cultures everywhere have used it, literally. The Phoenicians are amazing with it. The people of India also, incredible. Rite of passage, marriages, a girl becomes a woman, a boy becomes a man, wedding, I mean, on and on and on. The people of India. So do the Hawaiians. So do the Polynesians. So do the people of Portugal, the Spaniards, the Indo-Europeans. Back in the day, a couple hundred years ago, the Indo-Europeans, before they would go into battle, the women that night before would build the fire and nurture it, and then the men would walk on it. And if you didn't walk, you weren't allowed to go to battle, which would disgrace and dishonor your family. So ritually, again, as a rite of passage, it's been around for a long, long time. And Tony knew, he did his research. So there he is, he's got it. He also knows that if you don't firewalk, how is he going to create the paradigm shift? How is he going to get you to that point? If I can walk on coals that are 1,000 degrees and not burn myself, what else can I do, right? So he needs to cause the shift that night. By the way, this is a 4-day event, and this is day 1 that night, right? You know what else he knows? There's people like me, and he knows where we are, and he knows what we're doing. So what's he do? He trains people to come find you. So I'm back there. I got it all figured out. Yeah, no firewalk. Nope. Here comes this guy. Out of nowhere, Joe, he gets probably 20 feet from me, locks eyes with me, won't take his eyes off, gets 20 feet from me, and he looks at me really funny, like there's something wrong with me, like a dog when it hears a funny noise, right? They tilt their head, and he looks at me real funny, and he goes, "Hey, man, are you okay?" And of course, when we're not okay, what do? We lie, right? Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, no problem here, buddy. Move along. Nothing to see here. And he immediately goes for the kill shot. He goes, "Hey, man, you going to walk tonight?" And I'm like, "Absolutely not." It's like, I'm thinking, "You idiot, why do you think I'm hiding in the back?" And he's like, "Hey, man, it's cool. No problem. Listen, man, we don't want you to do anything you don't want to do." And I thought, oh, okay, this guy's going to get me out of here. No, he's not. He's tricking me. Because the next question he asked me, and by the way, I don't know who this guy is to this day, Joe. And if it wasn't for him, I would not have walked tens of thousands of people. I would have never been on your podcast. I wouldn't have the career that I have, because that guy asked me one question, and that was, "Wouldn't you at least like to watch?" And so I'm like, well, yeah, sure. Why not? What's the harm in that? Sure, let's go watch these people burn their feet off. It should be entertaining. And he said, "Well, hey, man, you can't see anything from back here." But she's telling the truth. I'm 100 yards away. I've got 3,500 people standing in front of me. I can't see anything. I can hear it. The people are chanting and they're clapping and the drums are going, excuse me, and they're already firewalking and they're celebrating. So when they finish, they're jumping up and down like kids and screaming and yelling. So I can hear all that, but again, I can't see it. And he said, "Hey, man, no big deal. Just get in line." And right, okay. I took the bait. I did. So get in line, and eventually you'll get up there where you can see it, which in his defense, he is telling the truth. So I get in line and I'm kind of walking along, and the next thing I know, another stranger comes up to me and he whispers in my ear and he goes, "He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go." And poof, this guy just disappeared into the night. And I'm like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about? He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. What does that mean?" Right? And so I'm kind of walking along, and all of a sudden I get to a point where, again, I got 1,000 people in front of me. Can't see it, but I get to a point where I can see it at an angle. And Joe, they're doing it. every race, every creed, every color. They're firewalking. And my brain is like, what's wrong with these people? We're mammals. We're taught to run from fire, not walk on it. And I'm staring at them, right? It's like the car accident that we say we're not going to look at, right? I'm staring at them. I can't take my eyes off it. It's mesmerizing, right? And I'm just kind of walking along and watching, and all of a sudden, boom. And guess where I am? I'm at the front of the line. And I'm like, how the hell did I get here? Right? It's like, no, it's like it's like my nightmare became true all of a sudden. And I'm standing there and I'm looking down at that lane and the coals are bright red. And they're glowing really, really, they're intense. And there's a wheelbarrow there. So you can feel the heat coming off. And my heart's going ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. I am frantic. I am scared to death. I know my heart's going to jump out of my chest. Well, there's a trainer standing right there. And all of a sudden he says to me, eyes up. Like, you idiot, right? I roll my eyes up. Well, when you're in the room for 10 hours with Tony, guess what he teaches you to do? Duh. Keep your eyes up. Don't stare at what you fear, right? Don't look down, right? We hear that, right? And so the trainer said, squeeze your fist and say yes. And I went, yes. And he went, stronger. And I went, yes. Well, this dude could tell I was not all in. I was leaving a lot on the table, and he knew I wasn't in a big state. And so he screams at me, gets in my face and screams at the top of his lungs, stronger. And I threw my hands in the air and screamed yes. And he goes, go, go, go. Boom. I took off. Remember the guy? He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. I did. Well, here's the first thing I learned about firewalking. When you take the first step, oh, you'll take the second, third, fourth, and fifth. I promise you. Well, Tony positions two guys at the end of the lane, and they catch you. And they're like, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate. And I'm wiping my feet, and I'm jumping up and down, and I'm celebrating. I got 1,000 people there. It's intense, man. People are out of their minds. It's one of the most exhilarating moments of my entire life, bar none. And I'm sharing it with 3,000 other people who are all pretty much feeling the same thing. It's exhilaration, right? Because our self-worth, our self-confidence, our self-belief just got elevated. So our frequency goes up, and it's collective. I call it, it's almost like a near-death experience, right? When you experience something at that level. Well, here's where it got really interesting the next day. Because now we're going into day 2 of a 4-day event. So we're all standing in the foyer. And we're getting ready to go into the venue. And I've never to this day seen anything like it. People were getting along like it's such a beautiful thing to see. It's the total opposite of March 2020. The total polar opposite. People aren't screaming and yelling about masks and vaccines and presidents and bullshit, right? Because that's what the media is created for, is to be argumentative and to demonize people. Well, if this is the total polar opposite. I'm watching people, man, and they're laughing and they're crying and they're talking about the firewalk and they're hugging and they're talking about their lives. And I'm sitting back watching it. I'm going, really? So did we drink the Kool-Aid last night? You better believe we did. Absolutely. So it was just beautiful. Well, later in the event, I met one of Tony's trainers, a guy by the name of Ted Macy. Super guy. Him and his wife, Mary Macy, were both trainers for Tony. Super, super great guy. And so I'm just talking to him. And I said, so Ted, what's it like to be in this environment on a regular basis? Because I assume you being a trainer, you're here all the time. And he's like, oh, yeah. He goes, are you kidding me? Can you imagine what it's like to be in this environment several times a year? And my brain went, ding. Yeah, of course. What a great thing to do. And so Ted goes, by the way, you see these people standing over here? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, so the black shirts and the pink writing on the back? Yeah. He goes, dude, they're volunteers. They're people just like you. They came here and then they filled out a form and then they got chosen to come back. He said, so listen, man, when you go home, call Robbins Research, tell them you want a volunteer crew application. They'll send it to you, fill it out, send it back. Who knows? Maybe you'll get chosen. Well, that's exactly what I did. 9 weeks later, after I filled that bad boy out, I got a letter in the mail that said, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Anthony Robbins Company. Well, color my ass happy. There I am. Now, when you fill out the application, they ask for a lot of information. So they knew that I had a security background. They knew I was in the military. So they immediately said, hey, put him on the team that helps take care of Tony's celebrities. Put him on the security detail, which they did, which I could do a whole podcast on that. Now, I've been around celebrities, you name it, man. I've been around them. And because I lived on a farm, I knew how to use a log splitter. I know what kindling is. I know how to use a hatchet. I know what a wood stove is. I know the difference between hickory and oak, right? So they put me on the fire building team, which was exactly where I wanted to go. So that was all going down in 95 and 96, Joe. And then in 2003, Robbins offered me the captain's position. And what that meant was I would take over all of Tony's firewalks globally. And I'll add, because I homeschooled my kids, Robbins even paid to have my kids go on the road with them, and their mom and their dad. Can you imagine being a 9 years old and 6-year-old kid and be on the road with Tony Robbins? By the way, let me say something about that. And that is, happy birthday, Tony. Today's his birthday.
Happy birthday. That's awesome, man.
Right. Yeah. He was born on leap year. So what's he, 9 or something like that?
Yeah.
I think Tony's, let's see, I'm going to be 70 this year. I mean, she's going to be 64. So happy birthday, TR. And thanks for the memories, man. And thanks for an awesome ride. So that all went down in 2003. So then we went to London in 2005. And that's where we set the world record, 12,300 people. We did it at the Excel Center out on the Docklands in the eastern part of London. And so that was, and by the way, I want to disclose, I say world record. Guinness Book was not there. However, that's the biggest firewalk that the world's ever seen. And I think the only other firewalk that comes anywhere close to that is another Robbins event. And then in 2014, I'm driving down the road and my phone rings and it's Google. Oh, okay. What can I do for you, Google? Well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you. Okay, well, homeboy's a free agent. What you got? And so there it was, man. I'm being called by Google. Now, why did Google call me? Well, because they know. They know what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. If they want to create a spectacular event, they have the data. They have the research. It's like, duh, right? In fact, I ended up doing 2 gigs for Google. What happened, though, originally they wanted to do a firewalk, but they wanted to do it in the middle of the day. They had 148 executives that were graduating from this curriculum. And I go, look, guys, we can't do it during the day. I don't do them during the day. Not 150 people. Ain't going to happen. It's a safety issue. I'll tell you what we could do if they're going to graduate in the middle of the day, we can still create the paradigm shift. We can do a glass walk. They said, a glass walk? You mean like walking on broken glass? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, ooh, tell us about that. So next thing I know, there I am at Mountain View, man, with 148 of their executives. And you know what was interesting about being there with Google? One of the executives took me aside and he said, dude, if I was in your shoes, you know what I'd do? I'd start my own business and I'd do it right now. And he goes, because I'm going to tell you right now, corporate America will be all over you because you offer the perfect experience. This is what they want. If they want to unite people and create camaraderie and culture, the Firewalk is perfect because that's exactly what it does. And dude, you're at the top of the hill here. So, you know, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but again, if I was in your shoes, I'd think about starting my own business. And so I went, you know, if a Google executive tells you to start your own corporate team building company, maybe you should listen to them. So yeah, Firewalk Productions was born in 2014. And, you know, the next thing I know, I'm at NASA. I'm at Notre Dame. I'm at Virginia Tech, Microsoft, Remax, Heineken, Chick-fil-A, YMCA. You know, the Entrepreneurs Organization. I mean, you name it. The next thing I know, I'm on a podcast with Joe Martin. Right?
Oh man.
So,
I mean, man. I'm right up where with Google.
Come on, brother.
Chick-fil-A.
What? Are you kidding me? Here's the pinnacle of my career, bro.
Oh yeah. Glad to be here, man. Welcome to the mountaintop.
Yeah, thank you, man. It was quite a hike. And so the bottom line, man, pun intended, we've been going hot and heavy ever since.
Man, what an amazing story, man. That's just, I don't know, that's the American dream right there, right?
It absolutely is.
But man, it wasn't always sunshine and rainbows with you, man. You had kind of a dark past and a dark history. So kind of tell people, because I think people see that, they see you where you are now and they're like, oh man, that guy's probably always been successful and happy. But kind of tell them how you kind of turned your life around.
Well,